Hey guys, welcome to another rendition of Stories Worth Telling. We are here with Denise DeFilippo from Movement Mortgage. You don't know how many times I have to really think about how to say the last name and how many times I've probably screwed it up, especially when I'm telling people and stuff like that. But
It's a
welcome.
learning curve. You're doing great.
Thank you. Um, I've been excited since you said yes to being able to do this. Obviously, you and I, we have a really great dynamic in terms of a professional relationship, and also on a personal level as well.
Yeah.
And so I've been excited. You're always a really just one of those people that you get on, you start talking, and but it's always a good time at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So very lighthearted. Um, so I'm just gonna kind of dive right in here, just because I know that there's some of these questions and some of these things that are going to probably generate maybe a little bit more on the conversation here, which is which is a good thing, because I think people definitely need to hear your story.
Thank you. I'm a talker. So
So the first question really is, I think a lot of people know that you're a military spouse, an Air Force veteran. Thank you, Mike, by the way, for your service.
I'll
And
let you know.
but how does a military spouse end up becoming a lender? And especially with one that maybe when you're traveling and moving around and all this stuff. So how did that really come to fruition?
Yeah, that's quite the story, actually. And I'm going to start it just by giving this kind of disclaimer, if you will, that I am a big believer in you end up where you're supposed to end up, right? Everything happens for a reason, and you are where you are for a reason. That being said, so yeah, I've been a military spouse. My husband and I have been married for it'll be 13 years this year. Been together for 20, and he's been in the military for 17 years. He's active duty Air Force. And we moved since 2007, 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
So yeah, so we've been all over the place. We were in England, here in Colorado Springs. We were in DC for 11 months. Then went down to Georgia for a few years. And when we were in Georgia, we bought our second house. Our first one was here. Our second one was in Georgia. And we found the house we wanted. Our realtor at the time gave us 2 names of 2 different lenders. And we connected with one of them in particular, and we went to his office to meet him and give him all our stuff. And my husband is from South Florida, and he looked, and I apologize if you hear a bunch of noise. I'm in my basement, and my kids don't understand, even though I threatened them.
It's all part of the COVID process. We're good.
Yeah. Anyway, so we went to our lender's office, and he looked at my husband's email and said, Miami Mike D is his name. And he's like, you a Dolphin fan? And my husband and I are like, we're huge Dolphin fans. And he's like, me too. Like, I'm from Florida. So we ended up in a personal relationship with that lender. And he decided 6-7 months down the road, he was going to open up his own lending. He was with Veterans United. He decided to open up Veterans United in Augusta, Georgia. And my husband was always referring him business from the military. So when he decided to open, he said to him, he took him out, they went out for a beer or whatever. And he was like, man, can I hire you? Like, you're bringing me all these referrals. Like, you're deep in the military community. My husband's like, I got to do the Air Force thing full time. So, sure. No, I'll keep sending you people, but no, I can't, man. And he was like, what about your wife? Doesn't she sell stuff on Facebook? Cause I was in direct sales at the time. And he's like, could she do it? And he's like, I can ask her. And I mean, that's the short version of how I became a lender. Like, someone took it and dropped it into my lap. So he's like, just go get loans. And that's how I became a lender. And then I obviously learned from there. And it's probably the best job I could have picked. Like, I absolutely love it. So that is how I became a lender.
I love that. I mean, and the fact that it started off with somebody just taking great care of you, right?
Yeah.
And then for somebody to, off of just a little connection of being a Dolphins fan and just asking the question, so kudos to him for being well aware and noticing things like that, because I think a lot of times, in the business world, it becomes very transactional.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really, it's something as simple as that could make you stand out and be a difference maker. And in this case, it landed you into this career. And So that's incredible. I love that that there was a great story behind that. And, as you were kind of going through all this stuff, was there any hesitation that this was maybe not the career field that you're supposed to be in? Was there any ebbs and flows or ups and downs that maybe that you kind of went through to be able to even get to this point where you're at now today?
Oh, ebbs and all of them, all the ebbs and flows. I mean, I'll be super transparent. There are days where I feel like this is like, obviously I feel like I'm in the right place and I'm in a place where I can help people. And I'm also really good at it. It turns out, not to brag, but there are days where I sit in my pantry and cry because I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And it was a bad day. And my husband was like, it's just a bad day. Like, just finish your little pantry cry and, maybe have a snack while you're in there and you'll go back tomorrow. And so I think, especially in commission-based jobs and jobs where there's a lot of people and there is it just, in the military community, it's very easy to be taken advantage of because people look at us as an easy payday, right? Because we all get paid no matter what. So, or rather the service member gets paid no matter what. So, I mean, we're like shooting fish in a barrel. So it's frustrating when you're integrity driven and you can see others that are not integrity driven and there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes it's very, very frustrating. And I would say those are my ebbs every time, almost every time.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, right? When you see people who may be passing you by, so to speak, in certain things, or maybe they're, I think when I was first introduced to the realtor world, showboating, right? There's a certain type of group of maybe realtors where they highlight themselves very much, almost to the point of where it's arrogance, and a lot of people are turned off by that, but I mean, it's definitely a class that only a handful of people can thrive in, So I totally understand, maybe that frustration, or at least can, see it from different perspectives of people who have gone through that and stuff like that. So, what are some things that you do to maybe overcome those, that self-objection or some of those things when you know that you're staying true and that you're maintaining that integrity? What is your process to kind of walk yourself through that?
Well, a lot of breathing. A lot of breathing and talking to myself has helped a lot. I recommend for everybody, no matter what. Sure. But I just have to keep reminding myself that I was put in this position originally. I really believe that I was put in this position to help. Especially, of course, my focus is on the military community because it's my community. Right. And that's what I'm going to do, and is not always going to work out for me. And I'm not always going to win every deal, but I keep telling myself, as long as I keep leading with integrity, then the money will come later. Always lead with integrity and don't worry about the money, and do the right thing every time. And I can go to sleep at night knowing that I did the right thing. Then that's a win for me. Even if I don't win that deal, I won because I led with integrity.
Absolutely. I love that. And those of you who are watching live, thank you guys so much for being here. For those of you who maybe missed the beginning, we are here live with Denise DeFilippo. She's a lender from Movement Mortgage, and she's actually was one of my first referral partners, one of the few people to turn around and basically just give me a shot, to take care of her clients, and when I asked her what I can do for her in return, she just said, take care of them, do it correctly. And, I think that alone just kind of shows the integrity that she has. And I remember the first thing that she told me, she goes, I don't waste people's time. If I can help them, I can, and I'll go to bat for them, and I'll go to the end of the earth for them. But if I can't, then I will let them know, so that way they can find somebody who will. Yeah. And so I really love that she was forward and to the point, but you can still tell that there's that integrity piece. Dwan Petty basically says people tend to take things out on the lender. So her husband's a realtor as well, and so she yeah. I mean, and I know a little bit more about that. And before we get to the next question here, guys, if you are tuning in live, feel free to post up any comments you have in regards to the mortgage, in regards to maybe the loan process. Denise really specializes with the VA loan, really heavy into the military community. if you yourself have any questions, or if you know anybody in the military community who may be potentially looking for a home and stuff like that, definitely take down the information. I'm going to go ahead and load that up here on both her Facebook page as well as her website. And again, just a wealth of knowledge. And even if it's just a question at this point, you may not necessarily be ready. Denise can definitely point you in the right direction. And if you guys are watching, go ahead and just type in #live so we know that you are catching this live. And then if you end up watching this later on, just do a hashtag and the word replay. That way we just kind of have an idea as to, you know, where the audience is in regards to watching that. But again, feel free to post up any questions or comments that you guys have. Sharon says, "Hi, Denise."
Hey, I miss you.
We were just talking about that, how a lot of people are kind of in this, all of a sudden realizing that maybe nails is a need, not a want.
It's essential, it turns out. Every time my nail peels, I'm like, yeah, no, it's essential.
Perfect. So you shared with us about you becoming into the mortgage industry, but you talked about, you know, how you used to be in direct sales, and obviously I got a chance to kind of meet with Mandy Penn not too long ago, and she shared with me that you guys had kind of I guess almost an intense relationship in terms of kind of competition for sales.
Yeah, we met in direct sales. That's how I met Mandy. Best thing came out of that. So.
Yeah. I mean, she's incredible. So, you know, and then she's doing a lot of success with her video, with her photo shoot going viral and all that stuff. So, congratulations to you, Mandy, on everything. Much deserved for all your hard work. But yeah, so Denise, tell us a little bit more about some of these past jobs that you've had.
Oh boy. So here's the thing about being a military spouse. I think all of us, like, shout out to all the military spouses watching. If you're watching, because I'm sure you have the same story as me. You just do whatever you can because you're only in a place for 2 to 4 years, right? So I'll just go by base. Let's just do that. So my first duty station I was married for was in England. So in England, I worked at a bank on base. I was a teller, which was cool because I got to work with all the different currencies because people were traveling. So I was a teller there. And then in Colorado Springs, when we moved down here in 2010, I was a dog trainer at PetSmart.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the thing I did. I was a dog trainer. I sold Jamberry nails for 3 years.
Okay.
And was fairly successful with that. I am a crocheter, which is a fun fact people don't really know. And I used to sell that as well on the old Facebook. When I was younger, I worked a lot with money. I worked in a grocery store. That's how I met my husband, was at Publix. So shout out to Publix.
Yes.
What that is.
We need one here in Colorado so bad.
No, we don't.
We do.
Because of the snows. Good, it's not here. So, I mean, yeah, I always struggled with feeling like I had to do something because I wanted to contribute and I can't sit still. So I'm like, I got to do something. I got to find something. I tried to make jewelry for a little while. Like, I'm all over the map. So it was really cool when I kind of fell into this career that I can take with me wherever I go. And, but yeah, I think that all my other stuff has set me up for lending though. For sure. I've learned a lot from every single thing I've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible, you know, to hear some of the stuff that people did or what, you know, where they grew up in, you know. So like my first job, I was 14 years old and I worked in a sushi restaurant. And my second job basically was at a local grocery store that no longer exists called Cub Foods. And it was basically like this teddy bear was their mascot, or little cubby bear. And I remember my first job was having to get in that suit in the middle of summer. And like there was 6 of us that shared the role of that suit. And so just the different smells of people being locked into this suit in the middle of summer was awful. So, but no, I appreciate you sharing all that. And that's really cool that you had so many hands-on pieces, and yet like you go from kind of like these direct sales and selling these things to more of a serving role in what you do. And So the transition, most of the people, it's maybe easier to go the other way, right? They go from kind of a servicing role into sales and stuff like that, but your story kind of goes the opposite. So definitely unique in there. Good to see you, Andrew Stroh. Thanks so much for tuning in. Jeff Clark, Carrie Denny, one of our favorite referral partners as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. To see you guys here. But yeah, so that's really incredible that that all of that led you. And it's hard for us to maybe see that long-term objective or that long-term goal or what's going to happen when we're always so focused on the immediate and the now presence.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
So this is an interesting question, right? Because I think the goal is always we want our past to be proud of its future. So what is one thing that you had wished you had known when you had began your career?
You know what? I got that question this morning and I was looking at it and I was like, oh, everything, I guess. So I'll do my best to answer. And I think I have to remind myself of this over and over, especially in my sort of career, is not to take everything so personally. And I think that's probably a lesson that everyone should take all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But especially in this business, I can't remember who said it, but someone said it earlier that, people blame the lender. It's always my fault.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that now, and I take it a lot better than I used to.
Sure.
But probably not to take everything so personally, and you're not going to win them all, and just keep moving forward and don't dwell too much on the losses, because you're going to miss out on the wins if you do that.
I like that. Yeah. And I think that's applicable to everyone, not just for you, but anywhere you go, we learn so much more from the L's that we take, but we celebrate more with the W's.
Yeah.
And so to be able to take the opportunity to realize that, failure is not this stigma of that you didn't do anything correctly. It's basically just an opportunity to learn. Right. And sometimes it's us learning from ourselves. Sometimes it's learning from those mistakes, or learning in terms of how we can make sure that doesn't happen again. So
right, yeah, exactly. So yeah, just don't take everything so personally. It's hard to do, but
yeah, okay. And this next question is something that I find myself looking at more and more, and it's funny because automatically for most people you think that it's just going to be their parents or but maybe that's not always the case, because you just different moments in your life, maybe sometimes that changes. And again, there's some people where it's just truly cut and dry, and for other people it's just kind of seasonal with things that we go through in our lives. So I put who are the top 3 people, but really it doesn't necessarily have to be the top 3. Just who have been some of the most influential people to you in your life?
So I'm gonna go I read that too, and I was like, ooh, I got a lot of I'm lucky I got a lot of influential people in my life.
Sure.
My parents, I wouldn't name my parents, not because they're not great. It's just totally different lives that we live. They were in the same place their whole lives, and so anyways, and the first one's probably a cliche answer. I'm going to do it anyways. And I'm sure he'll watch it later and then walk around the house like he's so big and bad. The first one's definitely my husband. Like I said, he's been in the military 17 years, Air Force 17 years. He was enlisted for 15 and then decided to commission to an officer after 15 years, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
A pretty wild thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just one of those people who is constantly he doesn't settle ever. He'll reach a goal and then immediately be like, all right, so now what's next? And I'm like, can you breathe for 20 seconds, man? And he's like, no, I got to keep moving. Let's move. What's next? What are we doing? So, especially getting into being a loan officer, he's been really influential to me. He's pushed me sometimes when I don't want him to, but maybe I need him to. So he's been stellar throughout, I've known him for 20 years now. And he's been nothing but a positive in my life. So he's definitely number one. Now I'm going to have to hear it for 3 weeks. But, my second one would probably be one of my best friends. She actually lives out in Virginia. I talk to her almost daily though. And she also is she's my cheerleader when I need her to be. She's tough love when I need her to be. But she's always trying to make herself better as well. So it's really easy to try and do it with, to myself when I'm always watching her do it. So, she's definitely very influential on my life. And then my third one would definitely be my current boss that I've been under him for about a year now. Not my whole time at Movement Mortgage. I've been at Movement Mortgage about, I want to say a year and a half, I don't know. I can't do the math right now. But I'm a loan officer and I can't do the math. But I started Movement Mortgage in June 2018, and then I didn't roll under him until I think April 2019. So.
Okay.
So almost a year. And he actually worked at the same company I worked at in Georgia, so we knew of each other. But he's just one of those people also, just like he's very similar to my husband, where it's like, what's next? What can we do better? How can we be more efficient? And has taken the time that I needed as a newer loan officer to guide me and help me and mentor me. And I will forever be grateful for him taking me on in April. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so respect to the hustlers out there. Mike, man, I think you probably have to clip this, highlight it, send it, add it to your phone, add it to your signatures in your emails or something. I don't know. But no, I love the fact that as a spouse, somebody that you have each other's backs all the time. And that even after all this time, I see the little jabs at each other, right? And it reminds me so much of Sharon and I, right? Because I don't think that there's a day where if we were both like just really sweet to each other all day long, we would know that something was up, right? We would know that something's wrong. So I just love the dynamic that you guys have and that you guys share, and that there's, that you guys allow other people to kind of be a part of it, right? Like we have this long going joke that Mike never gets any Korean food, and that Sharon will basically get to just post all the delicious foods, and Mike just has to sit there and look at it.
Well,
so
now we all tag him
but I love the fact that you guys include other people, and that you guys are open, and that you have that dynamic. I think it's very special, and it's very evident that you guys support one another. And I think that's, something that a lot of people, can learn and from in terms of that. So, other than maybe keeping it fresh and keeping it funny, but, I know this is maybe a question that wasn't in there, but, what do you think has been the great success for you and Mike and your guys' marriage?
Oh, communication. That's an easy one. That is the easiest question in the world. If you're not communicating, you start assuming what the other one is thinking, and then you're mad at the other one for the thing that they're thinking that you made up is not a real thing. Yeah, communication. Open your mouth and talk to each other, and remember that you're on the same team. Like you're not against each other. And I think that's hard to remember, especially when you got kids and you're trying to work and you got all this stuff going on. It's really easy to forget, like, you're on the same team. So remember that, and like, you're not trying to tear each other down.
Sure.
Not that I'm an expert on marriage, but
right. I love that. And I did miss a comment on here for Brianna Fields saying that she was watching live. So thank you so much, Brianna, for being here.
Bree's another one of my best friends. She's another hustler if I've ever seen one. Another what's next? Let's keep going. I'm just surrounded by them, man. I'm surrounded by all these incredible people. So
cool. Well, I may have to reach out to her to get her on here then. Awesome. What is one common myth about your profession or field that you want to debunk right now?
And then questions would have 800 answers.
I know. I was gonna say, I'm sure that there's a million, and that's a landmine. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and touch base on a couple, we have time. So
one that like really stuck out to me is people are always worried. Like, one of the most common things I get when I'm like, let's do an application, let's kind of figure out where you're at financially, and they'll be like, ooh, is it a hard hit on my credit though? And I think there's this big myth around credit, right? Like everyone's afraid of credit, but you need credit to do anything. It's kind of a catch-22. So back in like the 70s and 80s, when we didn't have everything digitalized and people could be like, I want a car, and they can go to Jim's Chrysler and get their credit pulled, and they don't like what they see. And then they go over to Hank's Ford and they just start jumping. That's when it would hurt your credit because they couldn't track it. So You had to be careful about how many times you pulled your credit. Now, everything's digitalized. Like you could see everything. I'm sure most people out there have Credit Karma or they've got Experian or all that. This is a really long way to answer the question, but one of the biggest things is people are like, well, I don't want you to pull my credit because it's going to hurt my credit. It's going to drop my score. In reality, in today's world, you would have to pull your credit 30 to 40 times a month for it to hurt your credit exponentially.
Wow. Okay.
That being said, though, sorry, I interrupted you.
Wow.
That being said, I know a bunch of you are like, that's not true. I have Credit Karma and I got my credit pulled for so-and-so and it dropped my points. Yes, you're right. There are two different credits and people don't know that. There's consumer credit, which is the credit that you'll see on Credit Karma, stuff that you can get for free, right? And then there's commercial credit. And commercial credit is what companies like mine pull. The reason why there are two different credit, you ask, so they can charge the companies to pull commercial credit. I think that's why. So
Okay.
it's different. So you'll see a score on Credit Karma and then you'll get your credit pulled and it'll be a little different. And it's because there's two different credits. So the commercial credit's the important one for when you're buying something. That one's not going to get dinged really if you get your credit pulled, but you're going to see it get dinged on like Credit Karma because Credit Karma is a tool to keep you on track. So it kind of like just keep like, hey, stop. Don't go crazy there with your credit pulling. So that's probably the biggest thing, the biggest myth that has to do with my job. Did that make sense? I feel like that was a whole...
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And I think that there's a lot of people who didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that. So I guess if I'm looking at it, I guess on your personal one that you have access to and things like that, that one is probably a little bit more lenient and probably see a little bit more spikes if we're kind of looking at kind of like an EKG where it's going up and down all the time, right? Whereas your commercial one, that's the one that's going to be fairly steady. You're not going to see much movement on that unless you're consistently applying or running information and stuff like that. Then is that correct?
Yes. Consider your consumer credit, the personal credit that you guys can see, as a guide.
Okay.
Because I get a lot of people real mad at me when I pull their credit and it's different. They're like, but that's wrong. You're wrong. And I'm like, oh, I'm not though. I'm right from the bureau. Not wrong. So yeah, I would say that's a very, very common misconception is in credit is such a beast of a thing. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It changes when it feels like it sometimes. Like it's, I mean, there's hard and fast rules, but it jumps all over and it's wild. It's a wild ride, credit. So.
Sure. Now, how much of a variation or what's the biggest variation you've seen between somebody's maybe commercial credit versus their personal credit? Again, with these people who are coming in and telling you that you're wrong.
I'm always wrong. I mean, I've seen anywhere between, a couple points to close to 100-point difference.
Oh, wow.
Depending on, what's going on in their specific situation. But yeah, I mean, it can really be a big difference. And it really just depends on the person and what they're doing and what their credit looks like. So.
Okay. Now, if somebody were to, if they're going through the process of maybe cleaning up credit to be house ready and to be eligible and stuff like that, will they be working, and again, maybe this is not your area of expertise, but we do have somebody who could maybe address this if people really want the answer, if we don't have it. But, somebody's doing maybe the credit repair process and stuff like that. How quickly would their commercial credit go up versus maybe the personal credit that they would see and have access to be able to see?
So for the and don't at me, you guys, because it is not my area of expertise. I know just enough to be dangerous on that. But I mean, if you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, right? Like if you pay off a credit card, you're going to see a little bit of a drop and then it'll go back up. That's pretty consistent throughout the two of them. It's really the big things that are different are going to be the hits to your credit when you have a hard pull. Okay. Usually Credit Karma and things like that. And for the record, I like Credit Karma and I use Credit Karma myself. But usually I lost my train of thought. Hi, I'm a mom and I had 2 kids and they've ruined my brain. So,
so I think the question again was just, how often might we see the difference? But I think you kind of addressed it right there, just saying, it comes down to how many hits you're taking.
It hits the big thing. I mean, if you're doing the right stuff, it's going to go up in both categories. You know what I mean? Both consumer and commercial. So
Sure.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. What was the next question we had here? Ooh. Do you have anything currently that you would like to promote or let people know in regards to, people who may be looking to get a home ready, people who are looking to maybe buy or sell homes? What are some of those things that, either some tips and tricks that you have for them? You know, um, what are the reasons as to why they should be contacting you, today, versus maybe tomorrow, or reaching out to somebody else,
Well, first of all, I'm a delight. I mean, I think I've made that glaringly obvious.
Absolutely.
um, um, so tips and tricks, the number one thing I tell people when they're like, how do I get my credit better? Or how can I do better? And like the number one thing is look at your credit cards, because almost everyone has them, right? 30% or less utilization, guys. That is going to jump your credit. So if you have $1,000 limit on a credit card, make sure your balance is $300 or less, and you're going to have a better credit score because of it. So that's my biggest tip for credit. As far as like, I would kind of equate your question to why would I use you, Denise? Why would I use you over somebody else? And really the only answer I have is I am integrity driven, and I didn't realize it when the job was dropped in my lap. But I'm here to serve, for lack of a better term. So let me back up. In 2010, I was about like, I don't know, 25, 26, something like that. And Mike and I just came back from England, and we were buying our first house that I'm sitting in Colorado Springs. And I remember going to the lender. I didn't know anything. I knew nothing about lending. I thought escrow was a bug that you sprayed for. Like, no, truthfully, I had no idea what was going on. Right? None. And I had no money because I was 25. So I remember sitting at the lender's office, and, VA loans require no down payment. That's a really great thing about the VA loan. And I remember him sitting down with us and going, okay, guys, I'm going to get you this killer rate, and all you got to do is bring $4,000 to closing. And Mike and I must have gone white, because we were like, oh God, we have like $7. Like, what are we going to do?
Right.
And we're like, we don't have any money. And he's like, I'm going to have to raise your rate, unfortunately. And like, looking back at it, and the feeling I had at the time is infuriating to me, because I know what I know now.
Sure.
So my big thing, like when I became a lender, I'm like, you know what I'm not going to do is that. I'm going to make sure that I educate my borrowers and answer any questions they have, and make sure, like, my end game is when you close your loan, you are comfortable with what I did. So my big thing, that's what I do. And even if you're not using me, if you're not using any of the realtors I know, if you're looking to buy a house, and you have a question, you need to ask the question. Like, never, ever, ever, ever feel like your question is stupid when you are buying a whole house. Like, it is a whole you are not buying M&Ms. You're buying a house. If you have a question, you need to ask the question and not feel bad about it. And if someone makes you feel bad about it, I get real heated about this. And if someone makes you feel bad about asking that question, you need to find somebody else, because that is a huge part of this job. Like, I hate that it gets so transactional, because people aren't getting their questions answered, and then they don't understand. And it's a crappy feeling, buying a $300,000 house and not understanding what's going on. That's trash. Like, ask your questions. That's my biggest suggestion. Like, my biggest push to anyone buying a house, even if you've done it 10 times, ask your question anyways. And if you have a good lender and a good realtor, they'll answer you every single time.
And good insurance.
And good insurance. I know a guy.
No, I love the passion and the fire behind that, right? Because it is that servant mentality. And again, I mean, you're just doing right by them. A lot of times, you've heard the term from realtors, from mortgage, turn and burn, and a lot of people live by that because they're so focused on getting to the next one,
Right.
and even in the insurance industry, people will sit back and wait for the phone to ring. And the running joke is that if you want to see your insurance agent go to work, new business and a cancellation, so there's something in between, there's something missing. So I love the fact that you do that you want to combat that you want people to realize, like, look, and this is an emotional time for most people. This is their
Mhm.
biggest investment.
Yep.
And even if it's not, it's still a huge chunk of it. You know what I mean? And so to be able to have somebody, and again, if you've been through the process maybe a couple of times, sure, maybe you just know what you want and everything. But for the very first time, especially for somebody, because of the military, a lot of people don't realize, like you said, they get that people look at them as dollar signs because
Always.
they're in there, but people don't realize that a lot of these guys are going paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
Their families, their spouses are basically being underpaid, or working for free in order to keep their statuses, and keep these, things going. And so there's a lot of different stuff that happens with military that a lot of people don't understand.
Right.
On top of, maybe you're selling to somebody who's not even, you've never even met because they're overseas and the spouse is taking care of everything.
Yep.
So it's a really stressful time. There's, so much of a roller coaster of emotions just to find the right home, then to finally get through, kind of that mortgage process, and then knowing that they still have to take care of things like the insurance and make sure it fits their budget. And a lot of them are probably stretching themselves more than probably what they can actually afford,
Yep.
but they're doing what they can because they know it's better to pay that than basically pay maybe to rent, or whatever the situation is. I mean, we could go on about this forever.
Hours.
um, so I love the fact that people now know that that they have an ally in the industry, and whether it's maybe they're not currently using you, but they know that they have maybe another option to be able to come back to somebody and say, is this how it works? Is this the correct process?
Always. And I'm always more than happy to answer questions, even if you're not, I say it all the time, even if you don't go with me, even if you're not using me, even if you're closed and you're not even buying and you have a question, I'm here for it. Like, I will always answer questions for anybody.
I love that. Yeah. So thank you so much for doing what's right, and again, kind of putting yourself in that position where people can come to you with questions, and that you're willing to take that time, because again, it's finding that in any industry, really. I mean, a lot of these people, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people are kind of skating by and still getting the same amounts for the people that are putting in 1,000%.
Yep.
And so the reason why we started this series is to highlight the ones that are doing 1,000%. So
Right. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, that's just, you just seem to attract the same types of people, which is just integrity driven people, which is awesome. So
thank you. I definitely try. And I find that life um, quickly shows me who I should and should not be doing business with, and I'm very thankful for that. I don't know how to call it, if it's it's definitely not something that I came up with or anything like that. It's definitely something divine that is at bay there. But I'm thankful for that, because I know many people who experience burn after burn after burn, and I'm thankful in the fact that so far I haven't experienced a whole lot, and and that I've been surrounded by great people from the get-go.
yeah, that's very lucky.
So this is kind of our signature question here on the show now, and it's kind of interesting because I came from actually watching a podcast in regards to kind of this question, but I think it gives a sense of who you are, right? Assuming that you had no strings. So assuming that there was no time boundaries, no financial things, maybe no responsibilities such as kids or family or all those things. If you could just put Denise in her setting or in her element, whether it be a career, whether it be a passion, all those different things, where do you put Denise in that?
So sorry, my kids are screaming. Sorry if you hear that, everyone. My husband's at work, so this is what we're doing.
I appreciate the real.
Everyone with kids is like, yeah. So yeah, if I had no strings or anything, I like being in front of people. I think it's a very unique personality trait, because most people, they're like, hey, you need to talk in front of a bunch of people, and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that at all. Me, I'm like, great, where's the stage? Are there a lot, and are they recording it? Like, I am pumped for that. Like, I love that. So something having to do with that. It's why I do videos. I just like being in front of people. I like being in front of the camera, and I love to hear myself talk. So Like, this is ideal for me.
I like that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I know what I am. So
So you're
just,
saying, we need to get you on a TEDx.
I mean, I would not be mad about a TEDx. Oh yeah. Oh, that's my dream for sure. I
Yeah,
just being in front of people.
after attending TEDx last year, man, I just started like envisioning myself being on the stage.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they encompass so many different things. But on a more local level, I have aspirations of being able to create something similar for small and local business owners.
I'm there. I mean,
Yeah.
just be like, you get to talk. I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the biggest things, is mentorship. For me, that this is something that I'm really passionate about, is the idea of being able to pass it on. The history of mentorship is pretty crazy. So if you've ever written the book, The Odyssey,
A long time
written
ago.
by Homer, yeah.
Long
So
time ago.
when the king basically goes to fight into the war, mentor is basically the figure that is basically teaching the son how to run a kingdom. And basically it's kind of a clone, so to speak, of Athena. And then when years later, the kid is going after the chase after the king to find out what really happened, if he's still alive in the war and all that stuff. Mentor basically transitions into a woman, basically leading him on the path. So the I love the idea, and that it's an evolving process, that mentorship can come from different people. It can come from different shapes and different styles, and that it's something that is continuously evolving to what you need it to be, and what you can take from that. And so I know that you're getting plugged in here with our social media group.
Yep.
And have taken on that role and that idea to become a mentor, and to learn about mentorship and stuff like that. So for some of those things, outside of maybe work related, what are some of those things and some of those values that you think that people will gain, from kind of buying into that process and that idea, of, whether they're small business, an entrepreneur, or if maybe they're just looking for some direction, and then have you yourself experienced any of those things through any of the mentorships that you've gone through?
I really think, and I've said it a few times during this, is if you lead with integrity, money will come. Obviously when people say, oh, well, what's your why? Like, what's the number one reason you're working? And I mean, we would all be liar McLiar faces if we didn't say it was money, because like we got children to feed and stuff, right? Like we have things we need to pay for. But I think it's hard to do, but if you just kind of let go of the, like, I need to make money, and you lead with, okay, I'm going to do what I do the best way I can and help everyone I come in contact with, and that money is going to come. Absolutely. So always lead with integrity. Your money will come afterwards. And I've said a million times to my husband and to people around me, like, man, if I was like a crappy person and had no integrity, I'd make a lot of money probably.
Well, yeah, and I can attest. The incident that we had not too long ago, yeah. And so yeah, I mean, it does happen, but again, I think you talked about a really good thing. Being able to look at yourself in the mirror, being able to sleep at night, being able to know that you didn't screw somebody over. So I'd love that. I think you showed a really humanistic approach that, like, it can be easy to get caught looking at what other people are doing and maybe not looking directly at what we do and doing a comparison. I think that's natural too. But to be able to turn around and say, this is how I overcome that on a daily basis. This is how I overcome that. And at the end of the day, I'm okay with what I do and how I do it. You know what I mean? So.
My husband, again, I'm going to shout him out again. I can't believe I'm doing this twice. He always says to me, because I tend to compare myself probably more than I should to others. And he always says to me, you can't win a race if you're looking at everybody else. You need to be looking at the finish line and not everyone around you. So, I mean, I think that's a huge thing that I have to remind myself of on a regular basis. And I would really I would tell others to do the same. Like, you can't, if you're focusing on everybody else, you're not going to win that race.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Rachel and Aaron, thank you guys for tuning in live as well. Very happy to see your guys' names pop up here in the chat as well. So, man, this is it. Like I said, it's always a fun time with you. I love being able, like, when we get a chance to connect and all that stuff,
It's been a hot minute because of good old COVID.
I know. So, but yeah, we're overdue for a lunch and everything. But I want to say, just first of all, a really big thank you, not only for taking the time, for being here, but for giving us a lot of insight to a process that most people from a consumer side is a turn and burn process. Basically they get the loan and they get their keys and they're done, and until maybe it comes up later on. And but I think what you're doing, may be what we call a slow burn process in terms of being able to get to the point of where you want. But I think you're doing it the right way, because it's going to make you stand out. It's going to make you memorable for years to come when people later down the road need to go ahead and resell their home or rebuy another home. They're definitely going to remember how you took care of them, and with every person having an insurance, a nail salon, a realtor, mother, brother, sister, cousin that you work with, what I mean? Everybody, all these different things. I think that you're doing a really great job and you're inspiring a lot of people, myself included, in terms of what you're doing. And so definitely don't stop what you're doing. And, I think that this was the reason why I had to get you on here today, is because you had that story of basically how, military spouse, a lot of them, you hear that they're like stuck, or that they feel like that, it's lonely, and, there's so many different things, that they struggle with, and, part of me understanding my clients is understanding some of those pain points too. It's not just for the military people that are transitioning, it's the spouse, they go through and they're holding down the fort, and they have, while their spouse is at work and all those things. So, the fact that you hone in on that and that you pick up on that and that you can relate to that, definitely highlights a really great point that maybe a lot of people don't know is a pain point, with these people who are going through it.
It's my community. Those are my people. So, I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about education and helping, especially the first-time homebuyers, because I was that. And, we almost got taken advantage of in a car dealership when we were younger too. And it's all because they look at us as cash cows, military. So, I mean, that's a huge driving point in my business, is how can I help my own community and educate and make them understand one of the biggest purchases in their lives when, it's, and for the spouses, it's hard when you're starting your whole life over every few years. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, if you take anything from this, definitely copy down the information that we have on the screen there. I'll also go back and tag everything in the videos, both live on YouTube and Facebook, with Denise's information. And again, I hope that this has been a great viewing experience for you guys. We'll go ahead and post up the YouTube link. So if you guys could go ahead and drop a sub in the channel, that would be really great, to basically support the people right here in your backyard in Colorado Springs and in our state, Colorado. Again, we're bringing you the stories of these stories that are worth telling. Not to say that you yourself maybe don't have a story, but, I really want to highlight people in particular with the business, people who have basically maybe come from impossible situations, or these really situations that maybe you wouldn't have think, and basically put them out there because they're working really diligently, they're working really hard, and they're making a difference. And that's really what we want to highlight. Denise, is there anybody else that you wanted to shout out? Anything else that maybe you wanted to go ahead and talk about before we close and wrap this up today?
I mean, I could talk all day. So that's like just like giving me something and like letting me run away with it. So, no, it's a terrible idea, Patrick. No, I mean, everyone and something for everything has been wonderful. I mean, Patrick, I know you're talking about how I gave you you're a phenomenal human. So like, thanks for being a great human, I guess, you and Sharon. it's definitely a mutual friendship. I think we have where
Yeah,
I'm learning just as much from you if you're learning anything at all from me. So
absolutely.
just thanks for having me on here. Thanks for doing this. Like I've really been enjoying watching everybody, and I hope that I get to watch a whole bunch more that you do. I think you're doing a huge thing, and you're creating this whole tribe of people that, I think it's unique. There's not a lot out here, especially in the kind of businesses we're all in.
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, I mean, you're too kind. Really, with all that stuff, it's really been it's a learning process, and for me, my best is always basically trying things that maybe other people aren't, or where maybe people have said, you can't do that, and
Mhm.
watch me.
Like, yeah,
you
I'm
know
gonna do it now. It's true.
so and that's how I found out that I was not a good employee. Basically I tried to improve the process, and if they didn't like it, I'm like, well, it's getting the results and probably better than everyone else, so watch me.
Right. Yeah.
um you know but ultimately at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I'm glad to have people like you that are part of my network, part of my friendship. You're just super generous in terms of your time, and in terms of who you are as a person and things like that. So thank you again. I can't um again, my business would not be where it is if it wasn't for people like you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So guys, next week, Wednesday, we will actually be tuning in here live at 1 o'clock with Carrie Denny. She's a
Yes.
realtor with Keller Williams, and actually Denise and Carrie do quite a bit of business, and then they also include me on that when they can as well. So I'm super thankful for both of these ladies. And then next Thursday, we'll also be live with Alex Yoder from Dorman Property Management. Really incredible, doing some incredible things in the community right now. So you guys definitely won't want to miss both of those. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are a business owner, if you are an entrepreneur, if you have a story and are just needing a place to tell it, reach out to me and we will go ahead and get something scheduled. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Thank you, Denise, for being here with me today.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
Bye bye.